Good day, everyone. Welcome to Helps YouTube Live today, September 9th, 2025. My name is Eric Olsen, lead attorney for Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons in order to stop debt collector harassment. Title today is Can Your Retirement Income Be Garnished? Okay. The short answer is no. Very few exceptions, and I'll talk about those in a second. Back in 1974, there was a law passed called Employment Retirement Income Security Act, which protects pensions. If a pension qualifies under that federal law, then if someone tried to garnish the pension, they can't take it from the pension source. Now, you might say, well, gee, is my pension protected under ERISA, is the acronym, Employment Retirement Income Security Act? It probably is, but even if it isn't, assuredly there is a state law that's going to protect your pension. In 46 years of practice and tens of thousands of bankruptcies before I started Helps, I never saw anyone lose money in a pension to a garnishment. Okay, so you don't need to worry about losing money from your pension. Now, what about Social Security? Well, when Social Security was passed in 1935, ever since then, there's been a federal law, part of Social Security, that protects Social Security from garnishment. It can't be taken from you. Okay, and now, what about other forms of retirement? If you get a VA benefit, it's protected. An IRA, independent retirement account, it's protected. 401k, it's protected. Virtually all forms of retirement income is protected, can't be taken. What is the exception? Well, there's not very many of them. One exception, if you owed past due child support. If you owed past due child support, they could garnish up to 65% of Social Security. And I just don't see that happening. We don't run into that problem. But even if that's the case, there's things that could be done that you have to talk to us. But what about them taking money for student loans? Right now, it used to be for a long time that they could offset 15% of student loans, of your Social Security, to pay student loans. They don't do that. They stopped that on like June 5th. They stopped doing that. So it may start up at some time, but if you have modest or lower income, you're going to be able to sign up for income-based repayment plan on student loans and not have to pay the student loans. Okay. So I wouldn't worry about your student loan either. Now, what about income taxes? Well, a state income tax collector can't touch your Social Security or your other retirement. But the IRS theoretically could offset 15% of your Social Security to pay IRS taxes. They don't do that very often. And if you're modest or lower income, you can often qualify for what's called currently not collectible status with the IRS. So you don't have to worry about that. So if you got any questions, put them in the chat feature. I'll try to address those. I should be able to do that. Mary asked, if I deposit an insurance check to cover storm damage repaired to my checking account, can that money be taken in a judgment? Well, first off, you don't even need to worry about it unless someone does have a judgment against you. If you haven't been sued, you don't need to worry about it. And then if you have Social Security going into that account, let's say you had $2,000 in Social Security each month going into your checking account. A law went into effect in 2012 that tells banks that if they get a writ of garnishment, they have to examine where the money came from that was deposited in your account. And if any money came from a federal source such as Social Security, they take that sum and times it times 2 and protect that amount of money in your account, regardless of the source of actual funds that are in the account, where they came from. So if you got a check for $1,000 and your Social Security is $2,000, $4,000 is protected. As long as you keep the bank account less than $4,000, they wouldn't be able to take anything out of your account. Now, there States have different laws, and a state may have a law that protects insurance proceeds. It depends on the state, but there shouldn't be a problem. If you have any questions about that, you can always call helps. That's the whole purpose of helps. Helps was before I started helps. Seniors would come to me and a lot, for bankruptcy, and I would explain to them that you didn't need to file bankruptcy, and I explained why. And the reason why was because your income was protected. No one could take it, even if they sued you and got a judgment. And then the other reason that bankruptcy is expensive. It's not cheap, and it's kind of a headache for people. And sometimes you may even have assets that could create a problem in a bankruptcy where a trustee could try to take those assets. So what I explained to seniors, you don't need to file bankruptcy. But then the problem was I knew when I sent them home, creditors were going to call them and could make their lives miserable. And so the whole theory behind helps is that there was a federal law passed in 1978, the year I graduated from law school. It provides that if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to leave you alone. That's called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So that's what we do at Helps here. We represent seniors who owe debt. They give us the creditors they owe money to, and we send what's called a cease and desist letter out to your debt collectors. And under the law, they have to leave you alone if you have an attorney. And that's the magic of Helps. Now, in order for Helps to work, our assistance needs to be ongoing. It's not just one time. So when you enroll in Helps, you're literally our client forever, as long as you want the rest of your life. So that means if you ever have a question down the road, you can always call, no matter how often. If you got sued for whatever reason, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road for a debt, you call up Helps, get us a copy of the lawsuit. We send a letter to the attorney, explain your income is protected. We talk to you, explain to you why you don't need to go to court. They can get a judgment, but your judgment proof they can't collect from you. So you always talk to us. So we don't want you to worry. Okay? Guys ask, I'm in Alabama. How are debts which are caught up in a federal debt relief program dealt with if I stop using their services and cancel the bank withdrawal to pay the creditors? So federal debt relief program, there is no federal debt relief program. If there was, it'd be bankruptcy. But sometimes there's debt management companies and debt settlement companies. There's for-profit and non-profit ones. I talk about them all the time, guys. If you signed up with one of those programs and you're getting Social Security or a pension, my question to you, when you signed up with them, did they tell you that your Social Security and your pension was protected and you didn't need to use that to pay your debt? Well, the answer is going to be no, they didn't tell you that. Why didn't they tell you that? If they would have told you that, you would have realized you didn't need to pay the debt. They wouldn't have gotten your business. So these companies, with few exceptions, don't tell seniors the complete truth. They withhold information from seniors. Now, how do they do that? Well, they don't ask where you get your money from. So maybe they salve their guilt by saying, well, we never ask where you get your money from. We just try to help people pay debt. But they're being dishonest to you. They should be obligated to ask you, where do you get your money from? And if you get money from Social Security or a pension, they should tell you the truth, that your income is protected. You don't need to pay the debt. Instead, many of these companies, they sign up seniors, often have very little income, and they put them in utter poverty, making payments on debt that they don't have to make. And they're very thankful when they find helps or hear this information. I've already talked to several people this morning. One guy in particular was absolutely befuddled. He just couldn't believe that we do what we do. And so what do? We represent you so your creditors can't bother you anymore. You don't have to pay the debt. You don't have to file bankruptcy. With helps, you're not paying debt back. You don't pay debt back. You don't need to pay your debt back because your income is protected. So as far as you're concerned, guys, yeah, you could cancel with this debt relief program. How do you do it? Call them on the phone. Say, I want to cancel, and ask them to send back the money that they're still holding for you. Okay, if there is any. You can also ask them, why, when I signed up with you, didn't you tell me that my income was protected? Going without my heart medication the last 6 months, paying you. I mean, yeah, I talk about these. If you listen to me at all on these you'll hear me talking quite often about debt management and debt settlement. I may even later today, depending on some of the questions I've got written down here. Okay, and you're asking, what about personal loans I took out before realizing I had to retire due to? It doesn't matter. Sometimes we tell people, helps will help you. You don't have to pay your old debt. And some people get caught up. Well, what does it mean old? How old does the debt have to be? That's just a term. The debt could be a minute old and it's old. The basic is your income is protected. I don't care when the debt was incurred. It can be you can stop paying it, and they could sue you to get a judgment. They can't collect from you. You don't need to worry about it. So it doesn't matter about the age of the debt. Okay. So Discover Cards wants me to sign an IRS consent form. I think that's a form to let them know what your income is or something like that. I kind of think that's kind of new. I first heard about this a few months ago or a few weeks ago. Someone talked about this form. So sometimes these creditors and debt collectors, they're always trying to think of ideas to try to intimidate people and to scare them into paying debt. Got to realize they don't have to tell you the truth. They don't have to tell you what your rights are. But the only thing they're legally obligated to tell you is that, we're a debt collector. Any information we get can be used for that purpose. They don't have to tell you your Social Security is protected, your pension is protected. And so, but if there's a state or federal law that they could cite to try to get you to provide information, they want that. Sometimes they'll do that to scare you into thinking, oh, I'm going to get in trouble. I got to give them this information. Okay. And that's right. Freedom says you give us freedom from stress, frustration, anger, loss of sleep. And you're right. That's what helps does. If, you know, I tell people, when you enroll in helps, and I've already said it today already when I've talked to some potential clients, I said, if you ever have a question, you're concerned or worried, you pick up the phone and you call us no matter how often. That's why helps was founded. So you would always have someone to call if you're worried. And a lot of people are worried. I talked to a guy earlier today, and at the end of the conversation, I could tell he was breaking down and kind of crying a little bit because he had been so worried about this. But you don't need to worry. I emphasize that. Okay. You don't need to worry. And if you do worry, you can look at some more of our videos, or you can call us on the phone, talk to us. Your income is protected. You're going to be fine. You can use your money for your needs, for your food, for your medicine. So here's something I wrote down. Should I keep paying my credit card debt? So, and I'm talking to you if you're not a member of Helps and you got all this credit card debt. Should you keep paying it? Well, you can if you want, but if you're going without basic needs to pay the credit card debt, if you're struggling to pay for food and for medicine and whatever you need, your utilities, your rent payment, your house payment, I mean, you can choose to stop paying the credit card debt. And if you don't want to be harassed by creditors, you can enroll in Helps. I tell seniors when they call, sometimes I say you got three options. Three. One is to do nothing and deal with the problem on your own. I've already told you how your income is protected. A lot of people don't want to do that because they don't want to have to deal with the collector calls and the lawsuits. And they get scared. Option number two is sometimes you could file bankruptcy. Okay, but uh, a lot of times bankruptcy doesn't make sense because maybe you have assets that are over above the exemption for the state where you live, and you could lose those assets. And then bankruptcy costs money, and then you got to go to court, and it can be a headache. So bankruptcy is I know about bankruptcy because I filed tens of thousands of bankruptcies for people. And then the third option is the HELPS program, where we represent you so you don't need to deal with the collectors anymore. Oh, yeah, that's right. Department of Treasury Internal request for transcript of tax returns. Oh my gosh, why they ask for that? See, they want to find any tax returns you file to see what your income is, see if they can get at your assets. I don't think you have to give them that form. They just ask for that. Um, but I think if you sign that form or something, then you're scared thinking, oh boy, I'm getting the IRS involved, and you're going to call them on the phone and try to make arrangements to make payments. They use tactics to do that. That's one of these tactics. They use those tactics sometimes after they get a judgment, like in Florida, for example, they have fact information sheet where they send you this questionnaire with 20 or so questions about your assets. And a lot of them that don't apply to you, and even those that apply, just you're scared and you think, oh my gosh, I got to tell them where my kids live and their phone numbers. I better call them and make arrangements to make payments. You don't have to do that, but that form was composed by some idiot in Florida. Um, helps be able to prevent the creditors or collectors from seeking to freeze my bank account and trying to garnish my wages. I understand the time process involved while an appeal is made to a judgment. Well, okay, if you've been listening to me, you understand that if you get a federal benefit like Social Security, VA benefit, federal pension, whatever, twice the amount of your federal benefit deposited in your bank account is protected from garnishment, regardless if there's other monies in the account. Okay, so if you get 2,500 in Social Security, 5,000 in your bank account is protected. Got 2,000 Social Security and 300 in a VA benefit, 4,600 in your bank account is protected, even if money in the account came from some other source. But in order for you even to worry about that, someone would have to sue you and get a judgment. Now, when the bank gets a writ of garnishment, under the federal law passed in 2012, it's a federal rule, the bank has 48 hours to examine your bank account to see if there's protected income in there. Now, usually they do that within 4 to 8 minutes. That law's been in effect that long. Okay? Now, as far as your wages are concerned, well, okay, first off, in every state, a minimum of 217.50 net per week in wages is protected. 435 every 2 weeks, about 950 every month. But in some states, they don't even allow garnishment of wages, such as Texas, South Carolina, um, and then some states protect more than that federal minimum in wages. And then they'd have to sue you, get a judgment, and know where you work. So we just don't run into a problem with our clients having their wages being garnished. And if there was a problem, then we would talk to you possibly about bankruptcy. Would it make sense in your case or not? We don't file bankruptcy, but we're not, don't hesitate to tell someone if they should investigate that, but we don't have to do that very often. Okay? So Expose the Wolf says, if you're a nomad and live in your RV, would it be considered your home and therefore exempt from how much a vehicle will be worth because it is your home? It depends on state law, normally yes, but even if it isn't, no one's going to come after your RV that you're living in. It just, I'm talking about a creditor that gets a judgment. Now, if you owe money on the RV, that could be different. Then they have a lien on it. But no, in 46 years of practice, I've never seen anyone lose their RV to a debt collector because they got a judgment and they went after the person's RV. Just doesn't happen. Okay. Now here's another one to talk about for a second. What if I'm worried about my credit? Okay. A lot of a lot of seniors ask, "Well, I'm worried about my credit." Well, okay. I mean, you can pay the debt if you want, okay, and keep the credit up. That's up to you. And sometimes I'll talk to seniors, and I talked to someone yesterday, more than one, where they had maxed their credit cards out. They had no more credit available, and now they weren't able to pay the credit anymore. It was like they're in a hole, and they're trying to throw the dirt out of the. They couldn't get it over the lip. It was coming down in. You don't need to wait that long. Now, what? And as far as your credit is concerned, um, I mean, when you enroll in Helps, one of the questions we'll ask people is, do you have a credit card with a small balance or nothing is owed that you still want to keep? And if you do, you could keep that credit card. As long as it's not backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card, you're not going to pay. But you can also rebuild your credit after you enroll in Helps. Okay, we have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. Phil Tyrone and his company has that. It's free for our clients. Your credit is based on your recent credit history. Once your debt gets written off, you can rebuild your credit based on your recent credit history. You can get new credit, and you can build your credit score back up to 720 credit score or more within a year and a half to 2 years. Okay? A lot of our clients aren't worried about credit, but for those that are, you can do that. You can rebuild your credit. Okay? What can a 50-year-old in debt, losing home, car, and debt, leave company payments behind, do fully employed? Well, you could talk to us, but yeah, if you're fully employed, you know, I mean, if you live in Texas and they can't touch your wages, but I mean, this could be a case where you could consider bankruptcy. We talked to you about that. The attorneys that work from Helps are very experienced in bankruptcy. We don't file bankruptcies anymore, but we know what the law is. Okay. So Explosive Wolf says, thank you. And yes, I own the RV, but have numerous civil credit card judgments against me, close to 100,000. They're not going to come after your RV. And if you don't want to have to deal with the collectors bothering you, you can enroll in Helps. Okay. Sometimes, a person has an RV or something like that, and they're older. They might add one of the kids' name to the title to the car or the RV, so that if they pass away, then the kid gets the RV, or the kid gets the R of the RV, or the RV or the car, whatever it is. Um, but them coming after the RV isn't going to happen. And if they were ever to do that, we know what to do, but we don't need to talk about it because it's not going to happen. Okay. So Guy thanks us for putting this information out. You're welcome, Guy. You know, one reason is, the attorneys that helps, we've been doing this a long time. You don't file 30 or 40,000 bankruptcies like I did and not learn a little bit about what debt collectors can and cannot do. And then a lot of the information that's put on the internet is they withhold this information about seniors incomes being protected. And then there's what the law is, and then what happens in the real world too, which is totally different. It's real easy to say, yeah, if you go on the freeway and the speed limit is 55 and you're going 56, you're going to get a ticket. But we know that isn't going to happen. Or it's real easy to say, if you drive to Circle K Friday night to get a Slurpee at 10 o'clock, you could hit by a drunk driver. Well, yeah, I suppose that could happen, but do you live your life that way? The answer is no. Okay. And if you did, we know what to do, but it isn't going to happen. You don't worry about that kind of thing. Okay. How much time does a person have to provide helps with credit information after enrolling? About 2 minutes, whatever time it takes for you to email, text, fax, or mail The creditors you owe money to, their name, address, and account number. We don't need the balance. All we need is name, address, and account. And you don't have to do it at one time. You can dribble them in if you want. So when you enroll in helps, give us the creditors you want to hear from. And then if you forgot one or you didn't have one or you get a new one, you can always add that in later. So I don't know how much time it takes to send an email or to text us or to fax us or write on a piece of paper and put it in the mail, but it doesn't take much time. How do you add kids to my house? Well, it's called joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. We got an email that explains that. It's not done in every state, but most states you can do that. Okay. You can also consult with a local attorney about whether you should do that. But for a lot of our clients, they have a house that doesn't have a lot of equity or it's not worth a whole lot. There's no tax implications. So yeah, protecting a home for kids can be a good idea. Now you say, well, Eric, why not just a will? Well, under a will, your debt has to be paid before the kids get anything. So if you die on a bunch of debt, maybe all the equity from your house goes to pay that debt. They sell the house, pay your creditors, and the kids get nothing. Whereas if their name was on the house when you died, then boom, they get the home. You can sell it and split it up amongst themselves. So our first mission is to protect seniors from debt collector harassment. Our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. And that's why I'm talking to you today about this. What if you get a default judgment? What happens then? Nothing. A default judgment, if your income is Social Security, pension, disability, it's protected. Someone gets a judgment. I've explained how your income's protected, how they can't garnish your Social Security or pension, and how your money can be protected in your bank account, and your other assets are protected under state laws. Uh, a default judgment just means that it doesn't mean anything. Okay, really. All it is an order from the court showing you owe the debt. Now, just because you owe the debt doesn't mean you have to pay it. You don't. It's up to the creditor, the attorney for the creditor, to try to see if they can collect from you. And if they don't have anything they can collect from you, you're called judgment proof, which means the judgment really is kind of worthless. Okay. So I think earlier today I spoke with a 78-year-old man from Indiana. He owed around $40,000 in debt. He had $22, $2,200 in Social Security, and $300 in VA benefits. So he got $2,500 from federal benefits, Social Security and VA. He had a $500 car payment and a free and clear mobile home that he only had to pay space rent on. And he paid space rent was $400 a month. He was overwhelmed. He saw one of our videos on senior living. We do a lot of videos with Jeff Hoyt on senior living, where we explained how his income was safe, and that I explained to him how he could cancel his payments to his credit cards that he was current on, but yet he was desperate because he couldn't afford to pay them anymore. I explained to him how his mobile home was safe. It was protected under the homestead exemption, but they wouldn't come in after it anyway, and his car was safe. No one would take his car, and that he would be fine. And boy, was he ever relieved. I think he enrolled then. If not, he'll call back and enroll. Okay. Um, oh, crud. I have to re-sign in on this thing. Just there we go. There we go. So here we go. So explosive says, just letting others know to be careful calling your state's legal aid. I did, and they took all my information and placed me on hold and told me I didn't qualify to call the State Bar Association. Oh, you're right. No, legal aid does a lot of good things, but sometimes people are under the impression that if you that attorneys know everything there is to know about the law, and most of the attorneys that work for legal aid, they know just a little bit, and they don't know this law. They've never filed a bankruptcy. They haven't dealt with debt collectors issues with the law. They don't know it. So, you know, bless their hearts, they do a good job in areas they're expert on, but not this area. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. I'll give you an example here. A good example, though. If I can find it, I think I've got it on I just saw this today. Here we go. I'll show you my screen. And I was kind of tickled to see this. This is from Arizona Legal Aid. It's called Law and Seniors. Here it is. 20th August 24, a year ago. Okay. Money and debt. And I saw this article and I immediately knew what it was. It's really, really good. Past due income taxes and low income seniors. Can my retirement income be garnished for past due IRS taxes? Perfect explanation. Can the IRS garnish my bank account for past due income taxes? Um, perfect. How to obtain uncollectible status with the IRS. IRS Taxpayer Advocate Service. What can be done about taxes owed to a state department of revenue? You don't have to pay them. What is a tax lien? I received a 1099-C. What do I do? Can tax relief companies I see advertised help me? The answer is no. They're pretty much cons. In fact, the FTC says that right here. Talks about offering compromise. Can I eliminate taxes through bank? Conclusion. Gee, who wrote this? Sorry, this is Eric Olsen. This is executive director attorney at Helps, a nonprofit law firm that helps stop debt collectors from harassing. I did this article for the legal aid in get just my face again. I don't know, almost I did it 7 or 8 years ago. It looks like they republished it, and I read it today, and it's still accurate. It's a good article. In fact, I'm going to send it. Make sure that we put it on our website because it's really good. It was a pretty much laid everything out. So legal aid isn't all bad. They do publish some good things. I'm not bragging. Okay, I don't like to, but I do know a few things about the law in this area, particular area, and that's because I've been doing it for so long. Okay, so you expose what says he did that. He called in a local attorney. He found out the attorney worked for the creditors, explaining to them in the YouTube video how to get debtors served in my state. It's unreal how these people. Well, attorneys do work on both sides of the fence. I don't do that, obviously. But some attorneys will represent creditors and some will represent debtors. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Where are we at next here? And then I talked to, again this morning, I talked to this guy. He may be listening. I don't know. I tell people when I talk to them, I said, look, listen to our YouTube videos. And I say that to anyone. I talk to a lot of people and that listen to our YouTube videos. I'm glad they do. If they give some help, that's what makes me do this. He was from Florida. His age was 70. He owns a townhouse with his 2 kids. And the townhouse was free and clear. I asked him if they owned it jointly with survivorship rights. He wasn't really sure what that meant, but I'm pretty sure that's how he owned it. That would be the typical way. What that means is that when he passed away, it would go to one or the other. But anyway, um, he had a 2019 car that was nearly paid off. And we discussed how his home was protected in Florida. Florida has really, they protect equity in almost any home unless it's over a certain amount of acres, no matter what it's worth. Now, the car, there's a limited protection on it under state law, but I explained to him how even if someone sued him and got a judgment, it's not the practice of consumer judgment to credit to go after your car. Don't do it. And he was really happy to hear about this. He wanted to talk to his kids and call us back before he enrolled, which is great. That brings something else up. When you call us, you know, one of the things we're going to say is we can answer some questions if we can ask a few at first. And we need to ask some basic questions. And we write those down. They're on the computer. They're in a protected place. Nothing too personal. We want to know, your name, if you're married, what state you live in, your age. We're not going to ask for your address until later if we need it, if you decide to enroll. What your source of income, how you found out about helps, if you've been sued. We need to know that kind of stuff. Are you buying your home? How much do you owe on it? What do you think it's worth? We may check out the value just to see if there's going to be a problem or if there's some other solution for you there. If you own a car, if you're buying a car, what's the payment on it? What's it worth? What do you owe on it? Those kind of things. Have you been sued? And then what you owe in debt, credit cards and medical bills. Approximately, you're going to ask, what do you think you owe? And you'll give us a number, 10,000, 5,000, 20,000, 70,000, 100,000. It doesn't matter. It's good to get a general idea. We don't need exact numbers. And then we're going to read you what we do. We have a little script that we read and how it helps protects you and ask you if you have any questions. And then we talk about the fees. And 1 out of 7 of our clients at least get our help for free, probably more than that. And those that pay a minimal amount. It could be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months free thereafter. It could be $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months free thereafter, even less than that. So we go over the fees, and then if you decide to enroll, all we need is a debit card, name, number, and expiration date, your mailing address, last 4 digits of your social security number, the month you were born. Click a button. We keep you on the phone until you get an email from Helps. Right then when we're talking, it says, welcome to Helps. It confirms you're a member of Helps. And it gives details on how to get us that information so we can send letters to your debt collectors. Boom, you're a client immediately then. And when we hang up the phone, if a debt collector were to call you, you would tell them you're represented by Helps. You give them our name and number, hang up. If they call us, you'll be in our system as being our client. Okay? That's how easy it is. But sometimes people want to call us 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they decide to enroll. We don't care. We got the information there. We're glad to talk to you. If you don't get through, we'll try to call you back, or you can call us again. Okay. Okay, here's another lady I talked to today from Oklahoma. Had $7,500 in debt, a free and clear home. It's in Oklahoma. It's protected. No one can take it. Some of those Midwest states, like Oklahoma, that's where you see where they got on their horses and they threw the flag down. Everyone homesteaded the property. Those 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 states have pretty good protections on people's property. She didn't need to worry. I don't know if we enrolled her or not, but could have. Okay. Sorry for the yawn. Okay. It says the person contacts is from California. I'm a 75-year-old woman and own my home. I get Social Security of 1,100 a month. Oh yeah. I thought this was interesting. And I haven't called her back, but one of the attorneys has called her back or will call her back. She got a bill from PG&E for over $20,000 for an electric bill, saying she hadn't paid since 2021. She said, all my bills are on auto pay. They said my auto pay stopped in 2021. Uh, she says, I didn't stop the payment. Something happened. And they shut her power off because she owed 20,000 in electric bills for the last 3 years, whatever it was. It could be that much. I have nowhere to go and no one to help me, so I struggle every day without electricity. It would seem to me that if I had not paid after 2 months, they would have notified me. I agree with you. At the same time, I could have paid the bill, but now I could never pay $20,000. If this company's bookkeeping is this bad, why should I have to correct their error? Now I have to collections after pay my bill. What can I do? Help. When winter comes, I will have 2 feet of snow and no electricity. So what would I tell her? Well, first thing I'd say, okay, don't be so hard on the electric company. They made a mistake. You technically still owe the bill. Let's say someone owed you $500 a month, and all of a sudden uh, they stopped paying it, and you didn't tell them they stopped paying it, and you forgot about it. Does that mean that they still don't owe you that $500 a month for the last several years? No, they still do. Um, so you would want to get paid for that, and that's the position the electric company gets. Now, what can you do? Well, when I talk to this person, I'm going to ask them. I say, okay, you got this home. How much do you owe on the home? Now, if the home was free and clear, if she had a lot of equity in the home, she could consider looking at getting a reverse mortgage. Reverse mortgage would give her access to, depending on her age, she's 75, it could give her 40 to 50% of the equity in her home. It depends on how much the home is worth and your age. Okay. So if she had a home that's worth 200,000, she might be able to get 80,000 from a reverse mortgage, and that would be plenty enough to catch up and pay the bill on the property, on the electric bill. Okay. And she still owns the home. She could still still it if she chooses. She would have access to a little bit more money. Remember, she only gets $1,100 a month. Now, maybe if that wasn't possible, if there was not enough equity in the home, the other thing I tell her, I says, your only income is $1,100 a month. I mean, you could sign up for Section 8 housing, maybe get on a waiting list, maybe even get moved up on a waiting list. We talk about that. So there's things that can be done. Okay. Maybe she's going to decide to go off grid. Maybe buy a little generator, use a wood stove. I don't know. I guess you could live without electricity. People did it for thousands and thousands of years. But there will be a solution that we'll give her some options. We'll talk with some options. Um, is everything done on email now instead of paper? Pretty much with helps, it's 99.9%, 99% through email. Although when someone enrolls, we do send them a letter in the mail with a couple forms and stuff. We communicate by mail on some things, but most of it is through email. What's the best time to call? I don't know. For Eastern time, it's probably 9 to 7 at night. Um, we have pretty much any time during the day. You can always leave a message. Ms. H says a lot of cities are closing down Section 8 program now. What they're doing is they're stopping applications. They've been doing that for a long time. We do have a form email that gives you a link to a website that tells you where Section 8 is open in different parts of the country. You don't have to apply for Section 8 just where you live. You could apply for anywhere in the country. And that email also explains on how to get moved up on the list. No guarantee that it will help you get moved on the list, but it could. They do give priority for certain people to get moved up on the list. Seniors in certain situations are one of those people. Yeah, we understand as seniors that everyone doesn't have email or stuff like that, but it's amazing how many do. And when I'm dead and gone, hopefully a lot of years from now, there'll be a time when all seniors will know all about email. As the older we get, the seniors get older and older, they're very experienced in computers and email. Now on electric bills, you got to realize, when you enroll in helps, you don't have to pay these credit card bills anymore, and that gives you more money available for your 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 water bill, your electric bill, property taxes, and some of these basic needs that you need. How do you get rid of a student loan that was supposedly bought out years ago? Now bills are being sent out. Of course, they pay a $400,000 to senior citizens who can't possibly pay it. Well, student loans don't sue. Maybe a private student loan would, not a public, not a government insured student loan. They don't sue. If a private student loan ever sued you, which would be unusual, but if they did, your income's protected, remember? And right now, student loans, they're not trying to, they, they can legally offset 15% of your Social Security. We don't see them going after pension or any other type of income. And as far as 15% of Social Security, they announced on June 5th they're not going to do that. Now, they said they may do it in the future, and we'll have to wait and see. But if they did it in the future, there will be a program to get on what's called an income-based repayment plan. So if your income's low enough, you won't have to pay the student loan. Okay? So, Reese Room, you shouldn't have to worry about that student loan. Obviously, if you have 400,000, you're never going to be able to pay it anyway. They can send you requests to pay till they're blue in the face. Don't need to worry about it. The student loan payments are being requested by the government. Okay, I'll explain. Okay, and I know this. Back in about 2017, we were the plaintiff in a lawsuit against the federal government. 2017, I think, when that started, to a class action lawsuit to stop the offset of Social Security, 15% of Social Security to seniors, and the government put a law into effect, and they stopped offsetting 15% of Social Security because the process was so complicated. And then COVID hit, and the government kind of said, okay, we're not going to try to we're not going to offset Social Security to pay people's student loans. And then they finally said sometime last fall that, I think last October, they were going to start doing it. Well, they didn't. And then we have a new administration came in, and they said in May they were going to start offsetting So 15% of Social Security. They were going to have to ramp that up on May 5th. Well, around June 5th or middle of June, the administration, the Department of Education came out and said, we're not going to offset 15% of people's Social Security for past due student loans. They don't go after pensions. They don't sue you. That's the only way they get paid is 15%, getting offset of 15% of Social Security, but they're not even doing that now. So if you think that they're going to take 15% of your Social Security, not going to happen. Won't it mess up your credit score? Well, you can pay it if you want, but I don't think student loans report to credits that much, and if they did, it wouldn't affect it that much. We talk a lot about credit here. A lot of our clients don't care about their credit. They're more interested in having enough money for food and medicine. And like I said earlier, we do have a program for seniors called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score to rebuild credit. But no, you shouldn't be an issue. Student loans. I personally think that they talked about they're going to maybe start trying to collect student loans this fall. Well, it's almost this fall. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't want to get political here, but I think Trump has this thing about Social Security. He doesn't want people's Social Security being taken from them. So I don't think they're going to approve that, taking 15% of senior Social Security for past due student loans. But if they do, hopefully they get a program in set, kind of like the IRS, so you can get on a program, and if your income is low enough, you're not going to have to pay it. Okay? Time's flying here. So here's one more. This guy calls us from Texas. It's pretty good. I'm a former client. Once in a while, clients leave helps. You can always leave us. Problem is when we leave, we have to let the creditors know that we no longer represent you so they could start bugging you. And we don't like that. But he says about 3 years ago, I placed my debts with a group in Florida. He calls them Fair Credit Law Group. And left helps. They helped me negotiate numerous lawsuits and establish reasonable debt repayment plans. However, I have not worked since March due to whatever and unable to find work since. I cannot afford the $611 I've been paying. I asked to cancel my agreement with them. I do know I will need debt support going forward. I have outstanding medical bills and need attention. I live 100% on Social Security. At the rate the economy going, I'm struggling to make ends meet. Can I return as a client? Yes, you can. I appreciate your help. He should have never, there was no need for him to, if his only income was Social Security, he had no need to sign up with this debt management company to pay the debt. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but it wasn't going to help him any. Finally, he just realized he couldn't pay it anymore. And you can do it if you want. You didn't need them. You could have done it on your own. Could have done it on your own. Didn't need to pay them a fee. Because if you got sued or anything, they couldn't touch your Social Security. Anyway, yeah, if a person is a past client of help, so they want to re-enroll, we do that. We do it to start them right back up again. They sent a letter saying they will start collecting in November. Let's wait and see. It may have. I kind of doubt it. But then, if your income is modest or lower, there's going to be a way to get on income-based repayment plans, so you don't have to pay them anything. But I kind of personally, I'll bet they don't start up in November. But they could. Past due property taxes and helps. Yeah, if you owe past due property taxes, you need to pay those. You can't get, but you may be able to get them deferred, depending on state law, or they may get a discount or get them waived. Or if you have past due property taxes, if you don't have to pay all this other credit card debt, you'll have money to pay your property taxes. Okay. Just got a few minutes. Time has passed pretty quick. Person asks, do you have to pay a credit union if your car was repossessed? No. No, if your car gets repossessed, you owe money to the credit union. Oh, they're going to want you to think you have to pay them, but you don't have to. They're going to sell it, and the difference between what you owed on the car and what they got for it, it's called a deficiency. And they can send you what's called a deficiency notice saying you owe 5,000 or 10,000, whatever the difference is between what you owed on the car and what they sold it for. Do you have to pay it? No. No. I don't care if it's the credit union or who the lender is. Credit union isn't going to tell you that. Now, obviously, if you bank at the credit union, you would want to change to a different bank. Otherwise, the credit union could offset money out of your bank account to pay the debt you owe on the car. Now, a bank wouldn't do that, but a credit union would do that because a credit union, when you signed on that loan, you give them authority to take money out of your bank account. So if you owe money to a credit union you're not going to pay and you bank there, you're going to want to change to have your Social Security or your pension or your retirement income go into a different financial institution where you don't owe money. Got just a couple minutes here. This will be my last one. Person writes in, could my income be garnished if I'm working a job with the Social Security and Retirement Fund from teaching? Can they garnish my job from working? So he gets Social Security and retirement, but he's also working. Can they garnish? Depends on how much you make, and also depends on the state where you live. Like I explained earlier, $217.50 net per week in every state is protected. $435 every 2 weeks net. That's after taxes and other withholdings. $950 a month. But in certain states, they protect more than that. Some states don't even permit a garnishment. California, I think it's like $600-700 a week is protected. It depends. There's a lot of states, Texas doesn't allow garnishment. It depends on your state. But someone would have to sue you and have a judgment first. We don't run into too many problems with any of our clients worrying about being garnished. Okay. So it's been virtually an hour since I started. I want to thank you for your participation. I think I got all your questions. If I didn't, you can ask in the chat feature. Ask in the comments. You can always call us at the number here below, 855-435-7787. 855 helps us or helps US. You can spell it out on those phones where you have the letter on the number. 855 helps US or helps us. So I will see you tomorrow, Wednesday at the same time. Okay? And meantime, have a great day. God bless, and I'll talk to you later.